Are you ready? If you would turn to Luke chapter 22. Luke chapter 22. We're going to read verses 31 and 32. And then we're going to go to Revelation chapter 22. And we're going to read verses 14 and 15. When you have that, if you would stand for the reading of God's holy word. Luke chapter 22, verses 31 and 32. Let's read that. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. And when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. In Revelation chapter 22, verses 14 and 15. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word. You may be seated. Now here in Luke chapter 22, they are at the Passover supper. And Jesus announces that the hand of the betrayer is with him on the table. And this announcement sends them into a state of wonder. And they begin to ask, who would do such a thing to the master? And they even begin to question themselves. Lord, is it me? And then he told them, he says, I have appointed to each of you a kingdom, just like my Father has appointed to me a kingdom, that you would be able to sit with me and sup with me when you come up to heaven. Then a shift took place. It's as if a literal break in the atmosphere happened. And that's when he made his declaration to Peter. And he told him, Simon, Satan has desired you to sift you like wheat. Now Peter, Simon, these names are interchangeable, had no clue at that moment the kind of shaking and shattering that his life was getting ready to turn into. After that statement, Peter said to Jesus, he said, Lord, I'm ready to go with you both into prison and to death. And that is what Satan held on to. He snatched those words and turned those words into Peter's living hell that became his life. Now, I can remember a time back when I was a little girl, and we would go into the kitchen to bake or to cook, and the recipe would call for sifted flour. And there was this little stainless steel sifter that we would use for the recipe. And I thought, in my wisdom, that the flour was already fine enough. We didn't have to do anything else to it. However, we would put this flour into the sifter and use the crank handle to sift the flour, and it would go through. You turn the crank, and it would have to go through this metal screen.
Yeah, right.
And the crank would take it through, and then it would come out on the other side even finer than what it was, but it had to go through that process of being sifted.
Yes.
And it had to be mashed through the metal screen. And that metal screen had these tiny little holes in it that the flour had to go through. And going through that process made the flour better for the recipe. It made the flour do a better job than what it did in its prior state. And that is how we are. When we go through sifting, when Satan gets a hold of us and desires to sift us. You see, there have been times when I've gone through sifting, and it's as if I can't see 2 inches in front of my nose, because Satan is shifting and shattering my circumstances. So there's darkness all around me. But the one thing that I have to stand on is that Christ has prayed for me, and my faith won't fail me. There have been times when it's so dark, when Satan is sifting me, that I think that if I put my foot down to make a step, I'm not sure whether it's going to land on solid foundation or if I'm going to plummet downwards, because there's nothing there for me to put my foot on. And yes, I know Mama is praying for me. And I know Pastor is praying for me. And I understand that my cousin may be praying for me.